Good afternoon and welcome back to another Eduro Learning Facebook Live session. Today I'm really happy to be chatting with you guys here in Eugene, Oregon in my mother-in-law's stunning backyard. It is like a tiny bit noisy out here and there is a bit of wind, so it may be a poor choice, but it's just so nice out. I wanted to sit outside and enjoy the beautiful weather here in Oregon for a little bit longer. Today's Facebook Live session is about social media and your child, and we are really lucky to do parent training sessions all over the world. We do them in international schools, we do them in public schools, we do them in private schools, and we love talking to parents and talking about kind of the different challenges that parents have in the digital age. And one of the things that comes up time and time again, of course, is social media. And so today's topic is going to be 5 of the most frequently asked questions and how we usually respond to them. That's our focus for today. Thanks, Chrissy, for letting me know that you can't hear the wind, which is awesome. So I mentioned there are 5 most frequently asked questions. These are the ones I feel like we hear all the time, so I thought those would be kind of appropriate for a 15-minute session. And I'm going to go for just 15 minutes today, just like last time, so fingers crossed, hope that works out. I would say the first most commonly asked question, the question that most parents are concerned about, is who are they talking to and are they talking to strangers? And I think that one is has been really interesting to see kind of grow and change over time. Initial fears were that kids were talking to a lot of strangers in social spaces, but actually more often than not, they're just talking to their friends. They're not really kind of connecting with others outside of their peer group. They're talking to their friends. They're using this time to socialize with people they already know. And the good thing is a lot of the research shows 2 really important things. One is that the numbers of online predators that were reported kind of in the early 90s were greatly exaggerated. And on my blog post for this week, I have some links, some resources for that for you. So the fear of strangers contacting your child and getting them to go out somewhere with you were greatly overblown in the early stages of the internet. So that's kind of less of a worry now than it used to be. It doesn't mean it's something you shouldn't be thinking about, but it is much less of a worry than it used to be. And then the second thing was that kids were like kind of not really knowing what they were doing online, and a lot of the data that's coming back now is talking about kids are really socially aware of what's going on in their free time in online spaces. Maybe they're not as strong in academic pursuits in online spaces as we wish they were, but in terms of their socializing, they're really very aware of kind of social norms and how to interact with each other, and they're very aware when people outside of their peer group are coming in and trying to talk to them. Like, they know who they're talking to online. So that fear that it's going to be strangers kind of going after your children, I think, is one that has been really calmed down over the last 5 to 8 years or so. So it's more that they're talking to their friends in social spaces, and it's primarily people they already know, primarily people in their peer group wherever they go to school or the friends that they socialize with after school. So that number 1 question of who are they talking to, for the most part, it's their friends. And so that's a really kind of reassuring thing to know. It doesn't mean that talking to friends is always perfect and there aren't challenges with that, but at least that's kind of a good calming thing to know. Mostly they're talking with their friends. Also in my blog post for this week, I linked a couple of really interesting articles about how kids are talking to each other in online spaces that are well worth a read. My favorite one is called Like, Flirt, Ghost, A Journey into the Social Media Lives of Teens. I think it's from about this time last year. It's excellent, really well worth it. It's like a 20-minute read, really well worth it. Okay, the second big question that we get all the time, and not just from parents, also from teachers, is why do they spend so much time online? It's not real life. And I think this is a really challenging one for us as adults to understand, because all of our social interactions really happened in face-to-face spaces. When we were growing up and we were chatting and hanging out with friends, it was in person, or maybe it was like on the telephone or by passing notes. But today, digital spaces are where kids socialize. For them, that space, that social space online, is their socialization space. Yes, they have space when they're chatting at school or after school activities or spending time with friends on the weekend, but primarily kids are really busy. They have a lot of things going on in their schedules, so the space where they socialize are these digital spaces. It's not that they're online, it's not that they're alone in those spaces, even though physically they may be sitting there alone with their phone. They're actually socializing with their friends in these spaces. So it seems kind of counterintuitive for a kid maybe sitting in the living room on their cell phone, not talking to or looking at anyone in the room, to think that they're actually like socializing and hanging out with their friends. But in fact, that's actually exactly what they're doing. And in those spaces, they're developing social norms and social behaviors that are acceptable and appropriate in their teen group in that digital space. Hi, Emily. Thanks for joining. So it seems kind of crazy to us that kids would want to spend so much time alone on their phone, but in their case, they're not actually alone because they're in social spaces, hanging out with their friends, just in the digital world. And Chrissy's pointing out something really important that we could go a kind of long form into, but in many places it's not safe to let kids just go hang out somewhere. Like when my mom used to say, see you at dinner time, she didn't know where I was from 2 p.m. when school let out till 5:30, 6 o'clock when I got home for dinner. I didn't need to be constantly supervised because the world was a different place. Today, we can't let our kids go to the local restaurant, the local diner, the local mall, whatever it is, to hang out because it's not safe for them to be doing that. So we kind of are forcing them into these digital spaces by not giving them that freedom to just go be on their own and hang out like I did when I was a kid. So it's kind of a catch-22 in that we don't really understand this digital world where they're hanging out and socializing and learning social norms and being friendly with their friends. But at the same time, we're not letting them do the same things that we did when we were growing up. So that's kind of the challenge for today. So I guess the moral of that story, that second question of what are they doing there, why do they spend so much time there? It's because the most important part of a teen's life is to socialize. They're learning who they are and who they want to be, and they're growing up and they're doing it in those spaces. So for me, one of the things I talk about a lot is the importance of valuing that space and valuing that time that they're spending in that space, because it's exactly the same time we had when we were kids. We just did it a little bit differently. But they're doing the same kinds of things. They're exploring with their personality, they're exploring with their friend group, they're exploring kind of the boundaries of what their life is, but they're doing it in digital spaces. So what are they doing there? They're hanging out with friends. They're socializing. They're learning who they want to be. Okay, the third question is, what do I need to know as a parent? What do I need to know about the tools that my child is using? And I think one of the most important things to know is that the tools are constantly changing. So please, relieve yourself of the pressure of feeling like you have to know everything about every tool. Not only are new tools coming out all the time, but different school communities kind of center around different tools. I gave an example in my blog post that I'll share here now. When I worked in Japan, Twitter was really popular in Japan because it's really easy to say a lot in 140 characters because the Japanese language uses characters that means whole words. So Twitter was a huge tool in our school community. Lots of kids were on Twitter. After living in Japan for 5 years, we moved back to Thailand, where we had lived previously, and none of the kids in our current school use Twitter because it doesn't have that same cultural attachment, because Thais have, I think, 24 letters in the alphabet, and it's not character driven like Japanese is. So Twitter's not a huge tool in our new school community. So depending on where your child goes to school, and even if they're moving from, let's say, middle school to high school, they might be attracted to or kind of acculturated to other tools that they weren't using before. So the most important point is that the tools are changing. They're usually school community specific, so you as a parent should not feel pressure to know how to do everything in every tool. It's simply not possible. One of the things we do want you to know is that consistently through all of our parent training sessions in the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years, the top 3 tools have been Snapchat, Instagram, and YouTube. So this week, our freebie is a little bit of an intro to those 3 tools, some quick tips on how to get started, and some strategies for great conversations with your children so that you can be a learner when you're using those tools and let your child kind of be the guide. So the third most important question, what do I need to know about each tool my child is using? You need to know that they're changing all the time, and it's not your responsibility to know how to do everything. It is worthwhile knowing that the majority of the tools that kids are using today provide an opportunity for people to connect, to share, to communicate. They usually offer some way to determine publicity level, whether kids are sharing privately or whether they're sharing publicly. They usually offer ways for kids to follow other people and for those kids to be followed. And then they usually provide spaces for both public and private messaging. So all of those tools that I mentioned before, Snapchat, Instagram, and YouTube, offer those kinds of features. So the idea is it's where we can chat and get to know other people. More often than not, it's friend groups, but sometimes there are interactions with other people out there in the world, maybe that are sharing great things that your child wants to learn about or know more about. So don't feel like you need to know everything. Tools are constantly changing. So then the next question number 4, how do I keep up? Because technology is always changing, what we recommend is to be a learner with your child. To open up to your child and to let them know that you want to know about the tools that they're using. You know you might not be an expert, and they are probably the expert in this situation, and that's totally okay. But the idea is to spend some time with your child and get to know the digital spaces that they are spending their time in. So lots of parents that we work with talk about, maybe Snapchat is an app they want to learn to use, and their child's using Snapchat a lot with their friends. So as a parent, they will get on Snapchat and have their child show them how to use the tool, and maybe have an expectation that the parent's going to send a snap to their child once a day, and the child will look at and respond to the snap at some point during the day, and they'll have a little conversation. The idea behind this is not only for you to feel like you're kind of keeping up and feel like you're a part of their digital life, but also for them to see that you value the spaces that they like to spend time into, that you think it's worth your time to try something out. And as a parent, to be vulnerable, to be a learner, is a really empowering thing for your child. It's a wonderful feeling for your child to be able to show you how to do something when, their entire life, you've really been showing them how to do things. So this is an awesome opportunity not only for you as a parent to feel like this is a way you can kind of keep up a little bit more, but also a way that you can be closer with your child and demonstrating that even as adults, we always have opportunities to learn. And I see some great comments in here from Emily, so I'm just going to have a quick look. She points out, of course, that we socialize the same way as adults with our devices and just have a look around at any restaurant. Absolutely so true. And then Emily says, it can be scary for parents to let their kids explore in these online spaces, which is why developing the relationship with your child is so critical. Absolutely. And she points out to start young. One of the other things that isn't in my agenda to chat about today, but it always seems like we are waiting for the right time to start talking to kids about what they do in digital spaces. The idea is to make the parallel connection between how we behave in face-to-face environments and how we behave in digital environments. So basically, it's never too young, because as soon as your child starts, learning how to behave, you're talking to them about what is the right kind of behavior in a restaurant, in a movie theater, at a shopping center, in the grocery store, at school. Well, those all have parallels in digital life. So exploring with your child and helping them understand appropriate behavior in digital spaces, those are parallel conversations to the conversations you have about how they behave in face-to-face or physical spaces. So the key here is to be open to learning, to allow yourself to be vulnerable, to let your child maybe take the lead a little bit on the technical kind of navigation side of things, but you as an adult, you know what good behavior looks like. You can translate those kind of attitudes and approaches to the way we interact with people into digital spaces. That you have already learned and internalized. So in that way, you can guide your children, even if it's a space you're not familiar with. So that was number 4, how do I keep up? And the idea is to be a learner with your child and ask them to share with you how they're using their tools and to kind of invite you in so that you can learn some of the tools that they really like. The last one, number 5, what should I be doing to keep my child safe? Obviously, most important question. I saved it for last because it is the most important question. And I think I've kind of addressed it a couple of times already, but this is how I'd like to summarize today. The most important thing you can do as a parent is to build those relationships and have ongoing, authentic conversations with your children about what they're doing in the physical world and what they're doing in the digital world. For them to expect that you both care about, value, and understand the life that they're living in the physical world and the digital world is the most important thing you can do to keep your child safe. So a lot of times as adults, we have tendencies to look at younger people looking at their devices and saying that's a waste of time, that's not important, it's not real life, it's not real socializing, they're just being by themselves. And that kind of attitude that those spaces are not valuable is probably the most detrimental thing you can do as a parent with your child, because the idea is for them, those spaces are hugely valuable. Those are the spaces where they're socializing because that's the only place they have to go. So if we're not thinking that those spaces are worth our time to parent in, then we're telling our children, perhaps without meaning to, that their life is not worth our time. And I think that's the absolute last message that any parent would want to send. So the idea is to please have open and honest and authentic conversations with your child on a regular basis where you are demonstrating that you value their digital spaces for socializing just the way you would value your own physical social spaces for socializing. And Chrissy raises the point that you could have lots of different question prompts that might be interesting to you. And one could be, tell me some more about, who you chatted with in Snapchat today. I have a couple questions here like, who did you spend time with today? What made you happy today? What are you excited about today? Or you could ask them kind of more technical questions, like maybe you saw something like this Facebook Live session, or you saw something on a news report and you wanted to know about Snapchat. What's a Snapchat streak? Can you show me how to use Snapchat? Who should I follow on Snapchat? Emily's mentioning use their friends as a person you're asking about. What apps are your friends using? Or have your friends ever seen any inappropriate content on their Snapchat? And that can kind of open the door to an authentic conversation about their lives in digital spaces that's maybe less threatening than asking them directly about their own. So thanks for both of those, Chrissy and Emily. Those are really helpful. So the key takeaway of this number 5 for how to kind of keep my child safe is those open, regular conversations where you are valuing their social spaces the same way that you value our physical social spaces. So those were the top 5 frequently asked questions that we get from parents. The first one being, who are they talking to? And for the most part, it's their friends, people they know in real life. The second one being, why do they spend so much time there? It's not real life, but actually it is real life for them. That's the space where they have to socialize. So for them, it's just as real as the physical world is to us. The third question being, what do I need to know about each tool my child is using? Just the idea that it's a place to communicate and connect and share with others that can be both public and private, and that because tools are always changing, the best way to kind of look at it is to take your real life parenting skills and apply them in a digital setting. And then the fourth thing, how do I keep up? And the idea behind that one was to be a learner with your child, to ask them to teach you how they use their tools so that you can demonstrate that you value the time they spend there and you can kind of explore how to use the tools with your child. And then the very last one, the fifth one, what should I be doing to keep my child safe? It's having those open and honest and regular conversations with your child where you demonstrate that you value the space that they're spending time in, just the way you want them to value family time with you. So those are our top 5 frequently asked questions from parents about social media and their children. Thank you so much for spending that 19 minutes with me today. I went a little over what I wanted to do, but think is still nice, short and sweet. Thanks so much for joining me today. And next week we have another awesome Facebook Live for you. I think it's me again, so I will see you here in a week. Thanks so much. See you soon. Bye-bye.